matchmaking coming up this weekend at middleweight. Looking to rebound off his first round knockout loss to Bruno Ferreira. We have Brazil's Robocop, Gregory Rodrigues, and he's looking to take on Denis Tiuliulin. And why do I say it's a weird bit of matchmaking? Well, first of all, this fight was originally scheduled for January 24th in Jacksonville. The fight was scratched, but they put the fighters back together. And when you fall out of the UFC's top 15 rankings and you kind of go on a little bit of a path and a journey on the internet, you could go to World MMA Rankings, you can go to Fight Matrix, you can go to Topology, and you can see where some of these fighters slot in. And when you go over to Topology, and I know that records are for DJs and rankings are ridiculous, but Gregory Rodrigues on Topology is ranked the 23rd middleweight in the world. Denis Tiuliulin is ranked 79th, and this feels like a little bit of a stone's throw, but with a little bit of a catch. Gregory Rodrigues leaves himself out there to get hit and likes to get into wild brawls, even though he's a world champion in jiu-jitsu and a black belt in the discipline. Denis Tiuliulin fights like if Rock'em Sock'em robots were real, doesn't throw many kicks to the legs, only to the heads, like he's fighting multiple guys in a fight, and he strikes down the middle with power shots. So that's what makes this fight entertaining. If you look at Gregory Rodrigues, loses to Jordan Williams on Contender Series as a favorite, he gets hit by a left hand, and then I counted 15 strikes after the fact, and then he gets finished. Maybe you didn't, but that's how many I counted when I rewatched the fight today. And for Rodrigues, even in his wild fight against Chidi and Joe Kwani, the massive cut on it. His last time out against Bruno, first round knockout loss. So for Gregory, gets ready at Killcliff FC. And there's so many good training partners there. We already talked about some of them, but Brendan Allen, Chris Curtis was there to get Ian Garry ready for a southpaw in Jeff Neal. And I'll talk about that one later on today. But Gregory Rodrigues' main training partner seems to be Canadian out of Gatineau, Quebec, Canada, Marc-André Barrio. Perfect to get you ready for Denis Tiuliulin, whose takedown defense has been tested in the UFC, and it's actually surprised me a lot because his takedown defense on the regional scene was porous at best. But for Denis Tiuliulin, if any second of a fight is standing, this guy's got a shot.
He definitely does. He's one of the more heavy-handed fighters in this division, and when he is able to get momentum and gain confidence in his own striking, you almost see it on him when he's moving forward. It is a very difficult package to deal with. But for Gregory Rodrigues, I'm going to sound like the oldest man alive because I feel like a lot of people watching MMA now did not watch this guy. But when Chuck Liddell lost his durability, he fell off a cliff. You have never seen a fall of an athlete quite like it. It was like when Brandon Roy had his knee injuries. Like when the one thing that makes you special gets taken away from you, then you don't necessarily have those other skills to fall back on. And for Gregory Rodrigues, not only is he able to go out there and get these spectacular finishes, but he normally has to face quite a bit of adversity in the early goings of these matchups before he can start to break down his opponent with some of those great boxing combinations and big power shots that we have seen. But if the Bruno fight isn't the exception, if that is just the rule moving forwards, then what version of Gregory are we going to get? We bring up the BJJ in every single one of these videos that we do, but we never see it in his fights. So at a certain point, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, then it's probably a duck. So for Gregory Rodrigues, I am concerned that, hey, has he just kind of lost that part of his game? Almost like a Johnny Hendricks. Johnny Hendricks probably beat GSP, even though I'm Canadian and you're not supposed to say that, but it was because he was a heavy-handed striker on the feet, and he had that great wrestling as a base to go out there and threaten his opponents with. But once he stopped using that wrestling and just exposed himself as still a heavy-handed striker, but just not a striker with not a ton of variety, then we did see a much more diminished version of him. And again, for Gregory Rodrigues, if he's not able to eat those 7-8 strikes before he's able to go out there and have his own success, then Denis Tiuliulin's one of the worst matchups he could possibly go out there with.
So I showed the picture of the book with GSP. I put a picture up because I've got a Fight Night Pick shoe that's got GSP on it.
You gotta live your truth though, Craig, and I gotta be honest, I thought Johnny Hendricks won that fight.
And Brad Wharton from Cage Warriors, who I was kind of commenting under with the picture of the shoe, said this looked a lot like Paul Sass and less GSP. So listen, England's own Paul Sass. But when you look at it for Denis Tiuliulin, loses the first round against Jamie Pickett, and then he rallies back in that one. He drops him once, big time, and then he obviously, a couple of cup checks in that one. He did lose a point for that in the second round, but he hits him with the big knee that ends up finishing it. And you're talking about great training partners to get ready for a fight like this. Denis Tiuliulin on his Instagram training with the greatest heavyweight of all time back home. Fedor Emelianenko. So
a guy who wants to fight Mike Tyson.
Interesting stuff there for him. And for Gregory Rodrigues, I kind of flashed the two up there and I let you make your point. But Gregory, we've seen it twice in the UFC where he's utilized some offensive wrestling and some judo. His fight against Armen Petrosian that he lost by split decision, he utilized the wrestling in that one. Seemed like that was more of a game planning approach, kind of like RDA Luque. I only train to wrestle. That's all I know. But for Gregory in his fight against Jun Young Park, he was able to go out there and you saw that flip that he landed, Koshi Guruma that he was able to do. The big flip that he had against Park to land him on the bottom. I wouldn't be surprised if Rodrigues brings that into a fight like this against Denis Tiuliulin. Now, Tiuliulin, I touched on it. 1 for 3 in his takedown defense in his debut against Aliaskhab Hizriev. The Black Wolf throws people. So that's what we know out of Hizriev. He went 5 of 5 against Jamie Pickett and 2 of 3 his last time out. Now, did he get finished in the losses? Yeah. He got finished by Jun Young Park. He also got finished by Hizriev. But Tiuliulin, a very adept striker. So when we look at this one, Matt, Topology vote surprise to us there to you. I'm going to say over under 80% for old Robocop.
I think it's going to be closer to 50.
It's way over.
Wow.
854 total votes, 93% Rodrigues, 74% by knockout. For the 7% that have Tiuliulin, 79% by knockout. The fans think somebody's going to get knocked out in Boston. Who do you have to win this one?
I'm going to go with the big underdog in this one. I think Denis Tiuliulin has a great chance to win this fight, and this is why. If Gregory Rodrigues does decide to bring out the wrestling shoes, it just makes him that much easier to get hit. He's going to close the distance, and that's not what you want to do against a guy like Tiuliulin. He is good at landing shots from those weird angles while he's defending takedowns, and I just worry about the durability of Gregory Rodrigues, so I'm going to take a real Hail Mary on this one. Hopefully my arm strength's better than like Tua. No, I love Tua. Everybody knows that, but I do like Denis Tiuliulin in this matchup.
I honestly thought Denis Tiuliulin was one of the strangest signings in UFC history, and now 3 fights in, the jury's still out on that one. I do have Gregory Rodrigues. I think skill for skill, he's a little bit better in this one, but durability's not a skill. So that's the ultimate X factor in this fight. We're split on the pick here. Matt going with Denis Tiuliulin. I'm going with Hobocop, Gregory Rodrigues. It is Robocop. Some big time fights left on this card. The next one, the return of a legend, Chris Weidman taking on Brad Tavares. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.